Hi, my name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. So, a number of years ago, I was in the seminary, and I went to this German restaurant in northeast Minneapolis called the Gasthof zur Gemütlichkeit. I think it means like the House of Good Cheer or something. My brother-in-law and his brother loved this place, and it's awesome. I mean, just like German everything. And I'm a Schmitz, right? So German everything. German food, German beer, German lederhosen. And so at one point, since my brother-in-law and his brother were there so often, they got to know the owner. And we were hanging out, and so the owner comes out. And the owner was just this remarkable guy. His name was Mario, and he was an immigrant from Poland, which I always thought was really funny, that he owned a German restaurant with an Italian name, but from Poland. And at one point, he realized that I was a seminarian, because I said so, and he wanted to talk. So we talked for like 2 hours, and he told me his whole story. He came to this country when he was 24 years old. He had a wife, he had 2 kids, and he didn't speak a word of English. And he started out as a dishwasher in a restaurant. He just worked his way up, slowly worked his way up until he said, like, here, and now here's my restaurant. I own this place. And he said this, he said, I love this country so much. Back home, I would never be able to own my own restaurant. In fact, for me to own my own restaurant, my father would have to be a millionaire. Now, this was, of course, when he emigrated from Poland. That was under communist rule. And I love Poland. You know, like, well, please, I love Poland. Some of my favorite people are Polish. But honestly, my favorite saints, like, a lot of them are Polish. And if you're from Poland, I hope you love your country. And if you're from whatever country, I hope that you love your country. I love the United States of America. I love this. But Mario, he left this country, again, under communist rule, to come to this place, the land, what do they call America? The land of the free. And he came here willing to do something, willing to embrace the burden of freedom. Mario came to this country willing to embrace the burden of freedom. Why? What do I mean? What I mean by that is this, is that a lot of other countries, not all of them, but a lot of other countries, they have rulers. America is unique in that when it was founded, the founding fathers, they explicitly rejected the idea of a ruler. They said, we don't want to be a nation of the ruled. We want to be a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people. We want to be a nation that's self-governed. We want to have democracy, or we might want to say, constitutional republic. Now, I know there's a difference between those terms, but let's just use them alternately, as a republic or a democracy. And I say that because of this, because the burden of freedom belongs to those who live in a democracy or those who live in a republic. We're a nation of free people, which means we don't look to the government to take care of us. That means we take care of each other. That's one of the reasons why Pope John Paul II in 2002, he was addressing the United Nations, but specifically speaking about the US, when he said this, he said, democracy requires 2 things. He said, democracy requires wisdom and virtue. Now again, in other forms of government, you have a ruler. Now, the ruler needs to be wise. The ruler needs to be virtuous. If you have multiple, like an oligarchy, the rulers, they need to be wise. You need them to be virtuous. But if you have a democracy, if you have a republic, it means the people, those who aren't ruled but are governed, that we need to be wise, that we need to be virtuous. And here we are, the United States, a republic. The question is this. It's a hard question. Are we as a people wise and virtuous? Because if we're not, what John Paul II ultimately kind of pointed to is that, and what the founding fathers said too, this is going to fail. But can we be wise? Can we be virtuous? I think we can, but we have to first know what it is. So wisdom, what is wisdom? Wisdom, in very simple terms, wisdom is not just knowledge. Wisdom is not just information. Information is great, a lot of data. Knowledge is being able to order that information in a coherent way. That's great, that's wonderful. But wisdom is knowledge times experience. So basically it's not just, it's knowing the right thing to do, when to do it, and how to do it. It's like prudence. It's knowing the right thing to do, when to do it, and how to do it. So wisdom is practical knowledge. It's applied knowledge to life, to all the different circumstances of life. That's wisdom. Virtue is then the ability to do that. In fact, the classic definition of virtue is the habitual disposition to do the good. What that means ultimately is this, that when it comes to a decision, when it comes to like, I know the right thing to do at this moment, do I do it consistently and with ease? So I'm a virtuous person, not if I just occasionally do the right thing. A virtuous person will consistently do the right thing, and they'll do it with increasing ease. It becomes easier and easier to do the right thing. The more and more you do it, become virtuous. The question is this, are we a nation of those who are wise? Are we a nation of those who are virtuous? I don't think we're necessarily wise for a couple of reasons. One reason is this, I think we've forgotten our story. I think we've forgotten the stories of history. You know, Jaywalk's All-Stars, Jay Leno goes on the street and asks people, like, do you know anything about the story of the United States, you know anything about the story of world history even. And oftentimes we don't know those stories. How can we possibly be wise if we don't study the lives of people who have gone before us, both the good and the bad, both the villains, but also the heroes? You know, the people classically who were wise in the ancient world were those who dedicated their lives to study the lives of both villains and heroes, and to make the distinction between those who lived lives that deprived others and those who lived lives that built up others. And the wise were those who could tell the difference. We need to study history. We need to study the stories of heroes. But secondly, also, to be virtuous, it means we just need to start doing the good. Now, that's the crazy thing, is this: we live under the burden of freedom. But virtue requires freedom. What I mean by that is this: sometimes we can imagine that freedom is it's the ability to do whatever I want. Like, no, I live in a free country. That means I can do whatever I want. This is a free country. I can eat what I want. I can drink what I want. I can do what I want because I'm free. But freedom, especially for a Catholic Christian, is not the ability to do what I want. For us, freedom is the power to do what I ought. It's knowing the right thing to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and then being able to do that no matter what. That's the burden of freedom. And I think that regardless of what country you live in, if you have an opportunity to express your freedom, you have an opportunity to live under the burden of freedom, that's the challenge. Freedom is rarely ever taken away. Freedom is most often given away. I don't want the burden of freedom anymore, so come and rule me. I don't want the burden of freedom anymore, and so you make the decisions for me. I don't want the burden of freedom anymore, so it's all about this one election where I'm going to elect a new ruler. No. This is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, which means that if we're going to be the people, it means we also have to embrace the burden of freedom. Or we don't embrace it and we give it away. I believe that all of us have the possibility and the ability to be wise and virtuous in any given situation, to know the right thing to do and to do it, and to embrace the burden of true freedom in any situation, the power to do what I ought to do. From all of us here at Ascension Presents, my name's Father Mike. God bless.